Hi students, here's your video to accompany the readings that are item number 5 in week 5, which is shown on the screen right now. So number 5 says read online Edward Tufte materials and watch the posted video, which you're doing right now. So Edward Tufte is a very well-known data visualization expert. He's pretty much the founder of this field today for creating graphical representations of data that are ethical, honest, and useful to their audience. His interpretation of design principles as conveyed through data visualization is quite unique and very powerful. These days he is a retired professor from Yale, but he spends his time traveling the country doing workshops often for people in technology and software industries and other people who have to convert the data that they generate into easily consumable and comprehensible versions for people who are non-experts. So, but many of his foundational ideas and concepts pertain to people, any people who consume visualizations of data. So your next major project is a data visualization project. So you have to take a body of data and present it visually. I'm going to have another video in which I talk about that assignment explicitly, but in this video I want to talk about some of Tufte's major concepts, and hopefully what I say in this video will reinforce those ideas to you, and they will inform what you and your group mates do in your own project. So here is the Tufte chapter that I'm having you read, and here is the article by Stephen Few that I'm also having you read. So this Tufte book chapter is much older than this Stephen Few article. The Stephen Few article is only about 6 years old, but it talks about research that has been done to sort of test Tufte's theories about how usable certain graphics are to people and how memorable they are. So you'll read this one second after you read the first one by Tufte. You really need to concentrate on this information. Some of the content here will turn up importantly in your midterm exam, but also you need to understand these principles because you need to use them in the next week when it comes time for you to take a big collection of numerical data and present it in a new way in a visually impactful fashion. So I'm not going to sort of scan through the whole book right now in this video, but I do want you to notice right away this opening statement that he makes, that excellence in statistical graphics consists of complex ideas communicated with clarity, precision, and efficiency. Graphical displays should show the data, induce the viewer to think about the substance rather than about the methodology, graphic design, or technology of graphic production, avoid distorting the data, present many numbers in a small space, make large data sets coherent, encourage the eye to compare different pieces of data, reveal the data at several levels of detail, serve a reasonably clear purpose, and to be closely integrated with the statistical and verbal descriptions of a data set. So I just read that to you. You're going to want to read this several times and probably take notes to sort of distill out of this what the true meaning is. Now, he includes many historically important as well as merely elucidating examples of visual representations of data in this chapter. There are several in here that are foundationally important because they were original enactments of data visualization. They had important scientific and cultural importance in the last few hundred years. So please read through this and take notes as you do. Now this, as I mentioned already, and I'm not going to go into this in great detail in this video, this Stephen Few article talks about a famous study that was done within the last 10 years that tested some of Edward Tufte's key concepts, particularly the concept of chart junk. So this will give you a little bit more vocabulary and insight into the chart junk debate, which is the title of this article. So I've created a little document here that has some of the key terms from Edward Tufte, and I will post the content of this also on Learn, so you can visit some of these websites that I have listed at the bottom. I will just include it as a document that is attached to the week 5 list. So here are probably the 3 most famous terms that Edward Tufte is known for. The first is chart junk. So in Tufte's words, this is the interior decoration of graphics that generates a lot of ink that does not tell the viewer anything new. In Stephen Few's words, chart junk consists of non-data and redundant data elements in a graph. When you look at the examples in the Edward Tufte chapter, this will make a lot of sense, and I'll show a few examples at the end of this video. Now, according to this website about visualization called infovizwiki.net, they synthesize the lie factor this way. It is a value to describe the relation between the size of the effect shown in the graphic and the size of the effect shown in the data. So think about it this way. If you tell somebody verbally that something is 3 times more likely to happen, and then you create a graphic that distorts that number, and the graphic shows something that's maybe 5 times more impactful, then that's a distortion. If what the fact is, the numerical fact, the statistical fact is that something is 3 times more happen, but the way that it's shown in an image makes it look like it's 5 times more, then that is a distortion. And we see graphics do that all the time. You've probably seen some in the political cycle that we're in right now, and the past presidential election, the way that certain data was presented in the news in graphs and various figures perhaps was a distortion of the true numbers. And the final item I want to mention is Data Inc., and this is also a summary from InfoViz Wiki. They quote from Tufte, quote, "A large share of data ink on a graphic should present data information, the ink changing as the data change. Data ink is the non-erasable core of a graphic, the non-redundant ink arranged in response to variation in the numbers represented." So this relates both to chart junk and the lie factor. You might think Edward Tufte is a minimalist, that he doesn't like a lot of design in his graphics. That is not necessarily accurate. He just doesn't want superfluous design that doesn't serve a purpose. You might wonder how all of this concerns technical communicators. Well, technical communicators often have to create graphics that accompany textual information. In statistical reports, there is a need for the technical communicator to harmonize the information from various constituencies within an organization, like engineers and perhaps corporate communications staff. All of that needs to be channeled, but it needs to be ethical and accurate. And this touches upon our discussion of ethics in previous weeks. So I've noted a few articles here at the bottom. This article here on eagereyes.org touches upon the same study that Stephen Few discussed that tests out the chart junk debate. This next one is a National Geographic new area of discussion on their website about data visualization. And then University of New Mexico has its own data visualization research group, which is super interesting, so you might want to visit that. So I'm going to quickly show those sites. National Geographic, if you get it or have read it in the past, you know that they include some very beautiful visualizations on their website. And I've often wanted to reach out to somebody who works for National Geographic who creates these. But this article, it's relatively brief, gives some really interesting examples, like this beautiful one here. Donations collected by eBay in 2013 after Super Typhoon Haiyan devastated communities in the Philippines. This is a data visualization of that. Now, does this make the information more memorable and more easily perceptible to a user than if it was just written out in alphabetic text? That's the real question here, whether data visualization improves comprehension. And so you can read through this article. It's very interesting. Now, this is the other one from the Eager Eyes website, and it talks about that same chart junk debate that Stephen Few discusses, and it summarizes it maybe in a way that you'll find more interesting. Finally, this is the website of UNM's Institute of Design and Innovation, and in particular, the projects that they do in which they create data visualizations. And that's part of their research here. This has to do with student statistics often, concerning curriculum, applications to our institution. So we also find ways to make the data that undergirds the University of New Mexico interesting and usable to people. So this segment that we're doing this week is basically the undergirding, like the theoretical foundation that you're going to need to make smart decisions in your own work with your group next week in your data visualization project and presentation. It's an excellent idea to take notes when you're reading these materials this week, these foundational materials, so that you can use some of this terminology in your document that accompanies your data visualization project and in your presentation, to be turned in alongside your data visualization document. Your textbook has a chapter on using graphics, and you will read that next week.